The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower made of silver and gold. It sat at the center of known space, where 12 ancient species had met for thousands of years to decide the fate of entire worlds. Today, they gathered to discuss a problem that had kept them awake for 40 years. The problem was called humanity. Prime Counselor Vaughn stood at the center of the Great Hall. His body was covered in hard black shell, and his forearms clicked together as he spoke. He was old, even by the standards of his people, the Keth Dominion. His species had ruled the stars when humans were still living in caves and hunting with stones. "Fellow counselors," Vaughn said, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. "We have watched. We have waited. We have hoped that the humans would learn their place. They have not." Around him sat the representatives of 11 other species. Some were tall and thin like walking trees. Others were made of floating light. Some breathed water and sat in special tanks. All of them were ancient, all of them were powerful, and all of them were afraid of the same thing. 40 years ago, we discovered Earth, Vaughn continued. A small blue planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The humans had just learned to leave their world. We thought they would be like the others. We thought they would bow to our wisdom and accept their place in the natural order. A sound like laughter came from one of the counselors. It was Roth. A massive creature covered in green scales, with teeth as long as human arms. He was the greatest military commander the galaxy had ever known. Instead, Roth said, they spread like fire through dry grass. 17 star systems in 40 years. Technology that took us centuries to develop, they create in decades. They do not respect our laws. They do not fear our power. They treat the lesser species as equals. This last point seemed to anger the council most of all. For thousands of years, the 12 great species had ruled over hundreds of smaller ones. It was the way things were. The strong commanded, the weak obeyed, but humans refused to accept this truth. They made friends with species that should have been servants. They shared technology with those who should have remained primitive. They acted as if every thinking creature had the same worth. The humans are dangerous, Vaughn declared. Not because of their weapons or their ships. They are dangerous because of their ideas. If we allow them to continue, they will poison the galaxy with their beliefs. Other species will begin to question our right to rule. The order we have maintained for 10,000 years will collapse. The vote was quick and unanimous. 12 hands, claws, and tentacles rose in agreement. War would come to humanity. A formal message was prepared and sent across the stars toward Earth. It was simple and direct. The Galactic Council had declared war on the human species. A combined fleet of 9 million warships would arrive in human space within 1 standard year. Humanity could surrender now and accept slavery, or they could fight and face total destruction. On Earth, it was early morning in Seoul when the message arrived. Admiral Park Do-hoon sat in his office at the headquarters of the United Earth Defense Force. He was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face that showed the weight of many difficult decisions. A cup of coffee sat on his desk, still hot, untouched. His officers stood around him in nervous silence as the message played. 9 million ships. 12 of the most powerful species in existence. 1 year. To prepare. By any reasonable calculation, humanity was already dead. The message ended. The room remained silent. Everyone waited for the admiral to speak. Park Do-hoon read the message again, slowly, as if making sure he understood every word. Then he picked up his coffee and took a long sip. And then, to the shock of everyone watching, he smiled. It was not a smile of madness or despair. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting for something. And that something had finally arrived. Finally, he said quietly, they are coming to us. His chief of staff, a young woman named Lieutenant Hana Kwon, stepped forward. She was known throughout the fleet for her brilliant tactical mind. But right now, she looked as confused as everyone else. Sir, she said carefully, did you understand the message? 9 million ships. We have 200,000 at most. They will destroy us. Admiral Park set down his coffee and stood. He walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Seoul had survived many wars throughout history. Invasions, occupations, destruction, and rebuilding. Somehow, the city always came back. Somehow, the people always found a way. "Lieutenant," he said without turning around, "do you know why the Council fears us? Because we expand too quickly? Because we ignore their laws? No." The Admiral turned to face her. "They fear us because we cannot be controlled. Every other species they have encountered either submitted or was destroyed. They do not know what to do with a species that refuses to do either." He returned to his desk and pressed a button. Screens around the room came to life, showing star maps, fleet positions, and secret files that had been locked away for decades. "We have known this day would come," Park Do-hun said. "Perhaps not this soon, but we have known. And we have prepared." The officers looked at the screens with growing amazement. Hidden shipyards in asteroid fields. Secret research stations on moons that official records said were empty. Training programs for millions of soldiers that no one knew existed. "The Council thinks they know us," the Admiral continued. "They think we are young and foolish. They think we will panic and beg for mercy. They are wrong." He looked at each of his officers in turn. These were the men and women who would lead humanity's defense. These were the people who would decide if the human race lived or died. "We have 1 year," Admiral Park said. 1 year to show the galaxy what humanity truly is. They declared war on us because they are afraid. By the time this is over, they will understand that their fear was justified." He smiled again. That same strange smile that confused everyone who saw it. "Send no reply to their message. Let them wonder what we are doing. Let them fear our silence. And then, when they come for us, we will show them why they should have left us alone." The meeting ended. The officers hurried to their stations. Across Earth and all 17 human colonies, preparations began. Ships were launched from hidden bases. Soldiers reported for duty. Scientists worked day and night on projects that had waited years for this moment. And in his office in Seoul, Admiral Park Do-hun sat alone, looking at the stars through his window. Still smiling, the galaxy had declared war on humanity. Humanity only smiled back. Soon, the galaxy would learn why. The galaxy waited for humanity to react. But humanity said nothing. No messages of surrender. No pleas for mercy. No desperate attempts to negotiate. The silence was so complete that some in the Council wondered if their message had even arrived. Spies were sent to human space. They expected to find panic, chaos, and fear. Instead, they found something far more disturbing. They found nothing at all. No massive fleets being built. No weapons being tested. No armies marching through the streets. Life on Earth, and the colonies, continued as if nothing had changed. People went to work. Children went to school. Ships carried goods between planets just like before. Prime Counselor Vaughn received these reports with growing unease. "They are either fools," he said to his advisors, "or they know something we do not." But behind the silence, humanity was preparing in ways the galaxy could not imagine. Deep beneath the red surface of Mars, Dr. Yuna Beck worked in a laboratory that did not exist on any official record. She was 38 years old, with tired eyes and hair that she never remembered to brush. For 15 years, she had studied a strange artifact found buried in the ice of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. No one knew who had built it or how old it was, but Yuna had finally understood what it could do. She called it Project Echo. "The artifact is a key," she explained to Admiral Park during one of his secret visits. "A key to the galaxy's communication network. Every species uses the same basic system to send messages across space. This network connects everything: ships, stations, weapons, life support systems. Everything. The admiral looked at the small device on her table. It was no larger than a human hand, made of a metal that seemed to shift colors when he looked at it. "And this key?" he asked. Yuna's tired eyes showed a spark of excitement. "With this, we can turn everything off. Every council ship, every weapon, every system connected to the network. We can shut it all down with a single command." Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment. "The power to end a civilization," he said softly. "Or save one," Yuna replied. Far from Mars, in the cold darkness between stars, Captain Teiho Shin commanded a ship that most humans did not know existed. The vessel was called the Songbird, and it was designed for one purpose: to go where it should not go and learn what it should not know. Teiho was 42 years old, with a calm face that never showed what he was thinking. He had been a spy for 20 years, and he had learned that the best weapon was not a gun or a bomb. The best weapon was information. His crew was small but skilled. His second in command was Lieutenant Hana Kwan, the same tactical genius who served under Admiral Park. She had been sent to the Songbird because her mind could see patterns that others missed. Together, they flew deep into Council space, invisible to sensors, silent as shadows. "The Council fleet is gathering at the Nexus Point," Hana reported, studying the data they had collected. 9 million ships, just as they promised. But they are not unified. Each species keeps its own ships separate. They do not trust each other. Teiho smiled slightly. "Allies in name only. They are united by fear of us, not by love for each other. There is more," Hana continued. "The smaller species, the ones the Council calls lesser, they are unhappy. The Council forces them to send ships and soldiers, but they do not want this war. Some of them admire us." This was important information. Teiho sent a coded message back to Admiral Park. The enemy was not as strong as they appeared. Cracks already existed in their alliance. With the right pressure, those cracks could become breaks. On the human colony of Kepler 442, Governor Minho Jiang walked through the underground tunnels that now housed most of his people. Above them, the beautiful farming domes that had fed millions stood empty. The crops had been removed. The equipment had been changed. The domes that once grew food now served a very different purpose. "The electromagnetic pulse generators are ready," his chief engineer reported. "When enemy ships enter orbit, we can disable them completely. They will drift helpless in space." Governor Jiang nodded slowly. He was an old man, nearly 70, with white hair and kind eyes. He had spent his life growing things, building things, helping his colony become a home for hundreds of thousands of people. Now he was turning that home into a trap. "I never wanted to be a soldier," he said quietly. "None of us did, sir," the engineer replied. "But we do what we must." Throughout human space, similar preparations were being made. Mining ships were secretly fitted with weapons. Asteroid fields were seeded with hidden explosives. Every colony, every station, every ship became a piece in a vast puzzle that the enemy could not see. Commander Sora Lee led a fleet of what appeared to be simple mining vessels. She was 50 years old, with strong arms from years of physical work and a voice that could command respect from anyone. Her ships looked harmless, the kind of vessels that moved rocks and collected resources. But inside those simple ships were the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. "Remember," she told her crews, "we are not soldiers. We are miners. We are farmers. We are builders. When the enemy looks at us, they will see nothing dangerous. That is our greatest weapon. They will not fear us until it is too late." 6 months passed, then 9. The year was almost over, and the Council fleet prepared to move. They had watched humanity carefully and seen nothing to worry about. No great armies, no massive weapons, just a quiet civilization waiting to be conquered. Prime Counselor Vaughn felt confident as he gave the order to advance. "The humans have accepted their fate," he announced. "They know they cannot win. This war will be over in days." Fleet Commander Roth was not so sure. He had fought many wars, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Something about humanity's silence bothered him deeply. They are planning something, he warned the counselor. No species faces extinction without a fight. What can they possibly do? Vaughn replied with a dismissive wave of his clawed hand. They are children playing at war. We are the masters of the galaxy. The Council fleet began its journey toward human space. 9 million ships moved through the darkness like a wave of death. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong. On Earth, Admiral Park Do-hoon received word that the enemy was coming. He stood in his command center, surrounded by screens showing human defenses throughout the galaxy. Everything was in position. Everything was ready. The waiting is over, he said to his officers. Now we show them who we really are. The quiet year had ended. The war was about to begin. The Council fleet arrived at Proxima, the closest human colony to Earth, and found nothing. No defensive lines, no waiting armies. Just empty space and a quiet planet below. Fleet Commander Roth stood on the bridge of his massive command ship, his green scales reflecting the light of distant stars. Around him, 9 million vessels stretched across space like an ocean of metal and fire. He had fought 100 wars and won them all. This should have been the easiest victory of his career. But something felt wrong. Where are their ships? He demanded. Where are their defenses? His officers searched frantically but found nothing. The human fleet, what little of it existed, had simply vanished. Perhaps they have already surrendered, one advisor suggested hopefully. Roth did not believe it. He ordered his fleet to advance slowly, carefully, watching for any sign of danger. For 3 days, they moved deeper into human space. Nothing attacked them. Nothing challenged them. The silence was maddening. On the 4th day, everything changed. It started with the supply ships. These massive vessels carried food, fuel, and ammunition for the entire Council fleet. They traveled behind the main force, protected but not heavily defended. At exactly the same moment, across a dozen different locations, human ships appeared from nowhere and attacked. Captain Taeho Shin led the assault on the largest supply convoy. His stealth fleet, 40 ships that could not be seen by any sensor, struck with perfect precision. They did not aim for the warships guarding the convoy. They aimed for the engines, the fuel tanks, the food storage. Within minutes, the convoy was crippled. Ships drifted helplessly in space, unable to move or fight back. The human vessels vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving nothing but destruction behind. Similar attacks happened throughout Council space. Communication relays were destroyed. Fuel depots exploded. Command ships lost contact with their fleets. The massive Council armada, so impressive in its size, suddenly realized it had a serious problem. An army without supplies is just a crowd of hungry soldiers waiting to die. Fleet Commander Roth raged at his officers. Find them, destroy them. But the humans were not fighting like any enemy he had faced before. They did not form lines and charge. They did not defend territory and die in glorious battle. They struck from shadows, hit weak points, and disappeared before anyone could respond. The Council fleet continued toward Proxima, hoping to end the war with one decisive blow. If they could destroy the colony, they reasoned, the humans would lose hope and surrender. They chased retreating human ships into a dense asteroid field near the planet. It seemed like a mistake, a sign of desperation. The Council commanders smiled, believing they had finally cornered their prey. Commander Sora Lee was waiting for them. Her mining fleet had been preparing this trap for months. Every asteroid, every floating rock had been carefully modified. Some contained explosives. Others held weapons. A few were completely hollow, hiding attack ships inside their rocky shells. Wait for it, Sora told her crews. Her voice was calm, steady. Let them come deeper. Let them feel safe. The Council ships pushed into the asteroid field, confident in their superior numbers. They were so focused on the retreating human vessels that they did not notice the rocks around them beginning to move. Sora gave the signal. The asteroid field came alive. Explosions erupted in chain reactions that consumed entire groups of Council ships. Hidden weapons fired from unexpected angles. Attack vessels burst from their rocky hiding places and struck at close range, where the enemy's superior technology meant nothing. In 30 minutes, the Council lost an entire battle group. Thousands of ships destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers dead. And the humans had barely lost 100 vessels. Fleet Commander Roth watched the reports with something he had never felt before: doubt. "They fight like no species I have ever seen," he admitted to his staff. "They do not care about honor or glory. They only care about winning." The Council regrouped and decided to change tactics. If the humans would not fight fairly, the Council would strike at their heart. They would attack Kepler 442, the largest human colony outside Earth. They would burn it from orbit and show humanity the price of resistance. The assault fleet arrived at Kepler 442 and began the bombardment. Energy weapons rained down on the planet's surface. Governor Minho Jiang watched from his underground bunker as explosions shook the world above. "Now?" his engineer asked. "Not yet," the old governor replied. "Let them get closer." The Council ships moved into lower orbit to maximize their destruction. This was exactly what Minho had been waiting for. Now, the farming domes activated. But instead of growing food, they released an electromagnetic pulse that spread across the entire orbital zone. Council ships suddenly went dark. Engines stopped. Weapons failed. Life support flickered. Half the assault fleet drifted helplessly, unable to do anything but wait. Human boarding parties launched from hidden bases on the surface. Small ships carried soldiers to the paralyzed enemy vessels. But these soldiers did not come to kill. They came with something the Council had never expected: mercy. Lieutenant Hana Kwan led one of the boarding teams. She moved through the darkened corridors of an enemy warship, her soldiers behind her. Weapons ready, they found the crew gathered in the main hall, waiting to die. "We surrender," the enemy captain said, a tall creature with blue skin and 6 eyes. "Kill us quickly." Hana lowered her weapon. "We are not here to kill you." The enemy captain did not understand. "We came to destroy your world. We came to murder your people. Why would you show us mercy?" "Because," Hana said, "we are not you." The human soldiers did not kill the crews they captured. They treated the wounded. They fed the hungry. They repaired the life support systems so no one would suffocate in the cold darkness of space. And then, when the captured ships were working again, they let the enemy go. But before they left, each captured soldier received the same message. They heard it from human doctors who healed them. They heard it from human soldiers who could have killed them, but chose not to. The message was simple: "We do not want to fight you, but we will never stop defending ourselves. Go home. Tell your leaders what you saw here. Tell them that humanity does not want war, but if war comes to us, we will not lose." Fleet Commander Roth received his surviving ships back with growing horror. Not because the humans had defeated him. He had lost battles before. But because his soldiers came back different. They came back questioning. They came back wondering if maybe, just maybe, they were fighting on the wrong side. The war was only beginning, and already, the Council was starting to crack. 6 months had passed since the war began. The numbers told a terrible story for both sides. The Council had lost 40% of their great fleet. Humanity had lost 60% of theirs. Colonies burned on both sides. Millions were dead. And still, neither side would stop. But something strange was happening. Something the Council had never expected. Their fleet was larger. Their technology was superior. By every measure, they should have been winning. But they were not. Every day, more human ships appeared from hidden factories. Every week, more human soldiers volunteered to fight. Every month, humanity seemed stronger, not weaker. And the Council? The Council was falling apart. In the Grand Assembly Hall, the 12 great species no longer spoke with one voice. The Keth Dominion, led by Prime Counselor Vaughn, demanded total destruction of humanity. They wanted to burn every human world and kill every human being until not even a memory remained. The merchant species disagreed. They had lost billions in trade since the war began. They wanted peace. or at least a break in fighting so they could return to making profit. The younger species, those who had joined the council only a few thousand years ago, were the most disturbing of all. Their soldiers had been captured by humans and returned unharmed. They had seen human mercy with their own eyes. Now they whispered among themselves, wondering if the council had made a mistake. "We are losing control," Vaughn told Fleet Commander Roth in a private meeting. "3 species have already sent secret messages to Earth, asking for separate peace. If this continues, the council itself will collapse." Roth nodded grimly. "We need a decisive victory, something that will end this war once and for all." "There is one option," Vaughn said slowly. "Something we have never used before. The silence." Roth felt cold fear run through his scales. The silence was a weapon of last resort. It could destabilize a star, causing it to explode and destroy everything in its system. The council had built it centuries ago but had never dared to use it. "You would destroy Earth's sun," Roth said. "Kill billions of humans in a single moment." "Yes," Vaughn replied without emotion, "and end this war forever." On the other side of the galaxy, humanity was facing its own difficult choices. Admiral Park Do-hoon sat in his command center on Earth, surrounded by his most trusted officers. Captain Tae-ho Shin had returned from his intelligence missions with terrible news. The Council was preparing something massive at the galactic core, something that could end the war instantly. "Our spies among the lesser species have confirmed it," Tae-ho reported. "The silence is real. They plan to use it on our sun within 3 months." The room was silent. Everyone understood what this meant. If the Council succeeded, Earth would die. Every human on the home world, 8 billion people, would be gone in an instant. Dr. Una Baek spoke next. "Project Echo is ready," she said quietly. "We can stop them." Admiral Park looked at her. "Explain." Una stood and activated a display that showed the galaxy's communication network. Lines of light connected every world, every ship, every station. "Echo gives us control over this network," she explained. "We can use it defensively to shut down the silence before it fires. Or," she paused, knowing the weight of her next words, "we can use it offensively. We can shut down every council ship, every station, every weapon. We can cripple their entire civilization in seconds." "How many would die?" Admiral Park asked. "If we shut everything down at once, life support fails. Medical equipment stops. Ships lose power and drift into planets." Yuna's voice was barely a whisper. "Billions, maybe more." Captain Tae-ho leaned forward. "They are preparing to murder our entire species. Every man, woman, and child on Earth. We have the power to strike first. We should use it." "No." The voice came from Lieutenant Hana Kwan. She had been quiet until now, but her eyes were fierce. "If we do this, we become exactly what they said we were. A dangerous species that must be destroyed. We prove them right. They will kill us anyway," Tae-ho argued. "Maybe," Hana replied. "But there is a difference between dying as monsters and dying as something better." "Right." Admiral Park raised his hand for silence. The room went quiet. "There is a third option," he said slowly. Everyone turned to look at him. Before he could explain, a message arrived. A ship was requesting permission to approach Earth. It came from the Shen, an aquatic species that had been conquered by the Council centuries ago. They wanted to talk. The Shen representative arrived 2 days later. Her name was Counselor Vel, and she moved through the Earth headquarters in a special suit filled with water. Her species had been servants of the Council for 1,000 years, forced to fight wars they did not want, forbidden from developing their own technology. "We have watched you," Vel told Admiral Park. "We have seen how you treat your enemies. You heal them, you feed them, you let them go. This is not how war is supposed to work." "Perhaps it should be," Park replied. Vel was quiet for a moment. "I bring information. The silence will be deployed in 73 days. It cannot be stopped by normal weapons. But I also bring a question. Ask, if you had the power to destroy us, all of us, every species in the Council, would you use it? Admiral Park looked at this creature from another world, this representative of species that had tried to murder his entire race. He thought about the 8 billion people on Earth, the colonies that had already burned, the soldiers who had died fighting an enemy that outnumbered them 50 to 1. No, he said finally. We would not. Vel tilted her head, her large eyes studying him. Why? Because victory without principles is not victory. It is just another kind of defeat. Vel was silent for a long time. Then she did something that surprised everyone in the room. She bowed. A gesture of deep respect in her culture. Then perhaps, she said, humanity deserves to survive, and perhaps the Council does not. She shared everything she knew about the silence, its location, its weaknesses, how it would be deployed. And she promised that when the final moment came, the Shen and other oppressed species would stand with humanity. Admiral Park had made his choice. They would not use Echo as a weapon of destruction. They would use it for something else entirely, something that would change the galaxy forever. The Council fleet gathered at the galactic core, the brightest and most ancient place in all of space. Here, where the first stars had been born, they would end humanity forever. Prime Counselor Vaughn watched from his command ship as the silence was prepared. It was a massive device, larger than a moon, powered by the energy of dying stars. In a few hours, it would fire a beam across the galaxy and strike Earth's sun. The star would collapse, then explode, destroying everything within billions of kilometers. Earth would be gone. Humanity would be finished. Today we correct our mistake, Vaughn announced to the assembled fleet. Today we remove the disease called humanity from the galaxy. Across human space, people looked up at the sky and waited. They knew what was coming. Admiral Park had told them the truth. Some prayed. Some held their families close. Some simply sat in silence, accepting what seemed like the end. On Earth, Admiral Park Do-hoon stood in his command center. Dr. Yuna Baek was beside him, her hand resting on the controls for Project Echo. Around them, screens showed the enemy fleet. The silence charging. The countdown to destruction. Are we ready? The Admiral asked. Yuna nodded. Echo will activate in 30 seconds. But Admiral, are you sure about this? We could still use it offensively. We could stop them permanently and become what they fear, Park replied. No, we will do this my way. The countdown reached 0. Project Echo activated, but it did not attack. Instead, every screen on every ship in the Council fleet suddenly changed. The face of Admiral Park Do-hoon appeared, calm and steady, a cup of coffee in his hand. Counselors, he said. I want to thank you. Vaughn stared at his screen in confusion. What is this? How are you broadcasting on our network? Please let me finish, Park continued. A year ago, you declared war on us. You told the galaxy that humanity was dangerous, that we were a threat that needed to be destroyed. You were half right. Around the Council fleet, ships began to power down. Not because they were attacked, but because their crews stopped firing. They stopped following orders. They simply watched and listened. We are different from you, the Admiral said. We came from a small planet, blue and green, where we learned that survival depends on working together. Not conquering, not ruling. Working together, we built our civilization on an idea that you find terrifying. On the Shen ships, crews began to weep. On the vessels of the younger species, soldiers put down their weapons. Even some of the ancient species, the ones who had ruled for millennia, found themselves unable to look away. You believe that power comes from domination, from making others submit. We believe something different. We believe that true strength comes from helping others become strong, that true victory comes from making allies, not slaves. Prime Counselor Vaughn screamed at his officers, "Fire the silence, end them now," but no one moved to obey. You can destroy our sun, Admiral Park continued. You can burn Earth and kill everyone I love. But you cannot kill what we represent, because tonight, I am giving it away. Project Echo began its true purpose. Across every communication channel in the galaxy, to every species and every world, humanity transmitted something extraordinary. Not a weapon, not a threat, a gift. Everything humanity had learned was shared freely. Technology that had taken decades to develop, medical knowledge that could save millions, scientific discoveries that opened new possibilities. All of it, given to anyone who wanted it, without cost, without conditions. This is who we are, the Admiral said. This is why you feared us. Not because we could destroy you, but because we could inspire you. Not because we wanted power, but because we were willing to share it. The galaxy fell silent. 9 million ships floated in space, their crews watching this single human speak words that changed everything. Your soldiers have seen our mercy. Your lesser species have felt our friendship. Your own people are beginning to wonder if maybe you were wrong about us. Well, here is your answer. We are giving ourselves to the galaxy, our knowledge, our ideas, our hope. You can destroy us, but you cannot ungive what we have given. Fleet Commander Roth stood on his bridge, his claws trembling. He had fought 100 wars. He had killed millions. And now, watching this small human speak calmly about hope and mercy, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Shame, the choice is yours. Admiral Park finished. Fire your weapon and prove us right. Prove that you can only destroy what you cannot control. Or put it down. Join us. Help us build something better than either of us could build alone. He smiled. The same smile that had confused everyone who saw it a year ago. That is why I smiled when you declared war. Not because I wanted to fight, because I knew this moment would come. I knew you would gather your greatest weapon and point it at our home, and I knew that when you did, the whole galaxy would be watching. They would see what you truly are. And they would see what we truly are. The silence powered up to full charge. Vaughn gave the order to fire. No one obeyed. Instead, the Shen turned their ships around. The younger species withdrew from the fleet. Even the merchants, who cared only for profit, powered down their weapons and departed. You are alone, Counselor, one of Vaughn's own guards said quietly. The council is finished. Vaughn was arrested by his own people. The silence was shut down. The war ended not with a great battle, but with a quiet refusal to continue. 1 year later, Admiral Park Do-hoon stood on a balcony in Seoul, watching the sunset. The sky was filled with ships from a dozen worlds, all arriving in peace. Dr. Yuna stood beside him, marveling at how much had changed. They still ask about it, she said. Why? You smiled when the war was declared. The Admiral sipped his coffee. Because war does not show who is strongest. It shows who is willing to sacrifice everything for something greater than themselves. And what is that? Park looked at the alien ships crossing the sky, the representatives of species that had come to learn and share and grow together. The idea that there is a better way, he said. That strength without kindness is weakness. That victory without mercy is defeat. That the most terrifying thing in the universe is not a species that can destroy you. Then what is? Admiral Park smiled one final time. A species that would rather die than become like you. That is what we showed them. That is why they stopped. That is why we won. The sun set over Seoul. Across the galaxy, for the first time in 10,000 years, peace had a chance. And it had begun with a smile.